Now, the Ghana Health Service is warning that the disregard for COVID-19 preventive protocols risks plunging the country into a third wave. Director General of Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumar-Boaji, describes the threat as real and urges a relook at the adherence and enforcement of safety protocols. As of July 17, Ghana recorded a total of 99,734 COVID-19 positive cases with 817 deaths, and the country's active cases of 3,466 leave health authorities worried. Dr. Patrick Kumar-Boaji has been explaining why the country is experiencing an upsurge in cases since December.
There has been a gradual increase in cases over the past weeks. For example, between the 11th and 25th of April 2021, a total of 968 cases were recorded for the 2-week period, compared to 2,500 recorded from the 1st to the 14th of July 2021. The increase in cases have largely been from the major hospitals Accra, Greater Accra, and Ashanti region, with a few sporadic outbreaks in other regions such as Volta and Eastern regions. The rise in cases is of concern to the Ghana Health Service, and this necessitated the strategic meeting of senior managers and our partners to address the increase in these cases. Ladies and gentlemen, our current system has some inherent strengths. Capacity for case management has been strengthened with an increase in the number of treatment centers from 2 to about 70 currently, with a treatment center in each region. And this is something that has been ongoing since the last wave. Training of critical care staff and the provision of equipment has also been implemented. The establishment of the Ghana Infectious Disease Center is one. The establishment of electronic data collection system for surveillance data collection, a robust laboratory capacity from 2 in the early 2020 to 400 total currently. We also have a capacity for genomic sequencing as a country, and that we've been sequencing since the last few months. And we also have a strong expanded program of immunization that has been demonstrated since the vaccination started. However, all these capacity can be overwhelmed if we do not avert a third wave, especially driven by a Delta variant, which is highly transmissible.
Now, he also outlined some stringent measures that the service will be rolling out to control the rapid spread of the virus.
Part of the protocols that have been designed includes how funerals, etc., should be organized. And just like the protocol, I think it's not being adhered to not just by one group of people, but clearly many people are doing that. We are in discussions coming up with a proposal that limits the spread, that makes it safer. And whilst people still go ahead and have funeral, we think that is such a deep cultural thing that it is not something you can just wish away. And so we have a draft protocol that we are sharing to ensure that, how do we ensure that we still have our funerals in safety?
Let's take a look at the latest figures as are being reported in the regions, and you have that on your screen now. 304 new cases have been reported, bringing the active cases up to 3,466. The number of deaths, as we reported earlier, 817. Right. Now, the number of active cases as per regions is showing a rise in the Greater Accra region as well, 1,893. That shows close to 100 new cases in the Greater Accra region, 1,049 cases in the Ashanti region, also showing a massive increase there. We understand 100 cases of the new Delta variant have been discovered in the Ashanti region in the past 2 weeks. Following those is, interestingly enough, these trends often spread from Greater Accra through Eastern to Ashanti, or Greater Accra to Ashanti to Western. But we are seeing that the Bunu area, the 3 Bunu regions, there are 72 cases, 58 cases, and 32 cases for the Ahafo region. And the Bunu East region has the 3rd highest number of cases in the country with 72 cases. The Volta region follows with 71 cases, and then we go to the Eastern region with 44 cases, the Ahafo region with 32 cases. Before you come, well, the Western region has 34, before the Ahafo region with 32 cases. Then the Central region has 20, the rest have below 10. Now, we stay with COVID because the health service says a recent rise in the number of COVID-19 cases is of concern, and this has necessitated a strategic meeting of senior managers to assess or to address the issue. Now, here are the highlights of a press statement released after that meeting. And you have that press statement on your screen. It says that capacity for case management has been strengthened with an increase in number of treatment services or treatment centers from 2 to over 70, currently with a treatment center in each region. Also, training of critical staff and provision of equipment has been done. Establishment of the Ghana Infectious Disease Center, or GIDEC, has also been done. Also, the establishment of an electronic data collection system for surveillance data collection, robust laboratory capacity from 2 in early 2020 to over 43 currently, and capacity for genomic sequencing. This is how we know which variant is at play. And a strong expanded program on immunization. These are the strengths of the current system. But which gaps are we addressing? First of all, disregard of COVID-19 safety protocols. Now, addressing it would mean mobilization of opinion leaders, religious leaders, traditional leaders, key influencers, etc., putting in place contextualized risk communication measures for locations, such as schools, workplace, etc., establish and enforce adherence to COVID-19 safety protocols where appropriate. Also in the laboratories, scale up testing capacity for COVID-19, and antigen testing will be used as part of rapid response in locations where there are outbreaks, such as schools, workplaces, and at POEs. Surveillance, we are strengthening contact tracing, quarantine, and isolation. And with case management, we continue to strengthen the capacity for case management, including oxygen supply. We also request, that's the Ghana Health Service speaking here, that all persons who fall ill must report to the nearest health facility for testing and appropriate treatment. Now, in terms of vaccines, Ghana is increasing capacity to handle different brands of vaccines, including those that require ultra-cold storage facilities. Ghana is also trying to source more vaccines to cover many people, or as many people as possible, prioritizing hotspots, populated areas, and at-risk groups. And vaccine hesitancy needs to be tackled, which is basically the unwillingness of the citizenry or the general population to take the vaccines. Now, at points of entry, the gaps being addressed are recommending the use of rapid diagnostic tests at all points of entry. Also, monitoring the situation at the Kotoka International Airport on COVID-19 cases arriving in Ghana and instituting appropriate measures, and surveillance and screening to be undertaken at seaports and landing beaches. So that's what is contained in that statement. Stay tuned to Joy News as we bring you more updates on the COVID-19 situation. Now, for the third time, the Ministry of Health, Kwekwa Jemai-Menu, will be appearing before the committee probing the procurement of the Sputnik V vaccines. As of last week, Friday, Mr. Menu admitted failing to seek parliamentary approval before going ahead to purchase the vaccines. Among the reasons he gave for his action was the mounting pressure on his ministry to provide the required vaccines needed to inoculate the rest of the population who were due to take their second jabs as prescribed by health officers who were undertaking the vaccination exercise. We will be taking you live to today's session, but before that, let's recap a bit of his submission before the committee on Friday.
Did you seek parliamentary approval before you entered into this contract?
No, please.
You did not.
Have you any such plans?
I thought she was going to have a follow-up question. I had plans to come to regularize the parliamentary approval, to seek for parliamentary approval after I've signed the contract.
Do you appreciate the fact that the pronouncement by the Supreme Court vis-a-vis the constitutional provision clearly talks about prior approval? You appreciate that?
Honorable Chair, very much so. But my frustrations to try to get a vaccine for us at the heat of our second wave, I relied on the Executive Instrument 61 that was passed by Parliament to hide behind emergency clauses that have been invoked, to try to see if I could do that and come to Parliament to inform Parliament that this is what I've done and therefore need regularization. I need approval to cover it because we were in dire need of the vaccine. Yes. And I had the onus to try to procure the vaccines to vaccinate Ghanaians to protect our lives.
But the EI is subsidiary legislation.
Honorable Chair, I must be very honest with you. At the time, I've mentioned my frustration was the fact that I seriously made that error, and on hindsight, it won't happen any longer.
Mr. Minister, you are a senior member of this House, and you are aware of how we deal with emergency situations in Parliament. We have conventions and rules and regulations governing how you deal with emergency issues, i.e. appearing before the relevant committee and make a case so that the issue can be dealt with as an emergency issue. Why didn't you take advantage of that procedure?
Honorable Chair, I've explained that those were not normal times, and I was seriously in the situation that couldn't make me think properly, the way you think that now I will actually address myself to the situation.
Mr. Minister, are you aware that we have dealt with issues and motions on the same day before on the floor of the House, in this House? And let me give you examples. You remember the $1.2 billion and the $100 million from the World Bank? We dealt with it the same day. Couldn't you have done that?
I could have done that, but the circumstances at the time was a little bit different.
Honorable Minister, you have laid evidence before this committee that you used your best efforts to get diplomatic channels to enable you reach the manufacturer or the Russian authority directly. Is that correct?
Yes.
You even did so by producing letters as evidence of such correspondence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You further indicated that it was after all those best endeavors have proved futile before you dealt with the Sheikh. Is that correct?
That might not be correct. I dealt with the Sheikh before the frantic efforts to try to get the vaccines from the right source.
So, were you being untruthful to this committee when you indicated that you used your best efforts to get direct access to the manufacturer and the Russian authorities before you dealt with the Sheikh?
I can't remember I have said this anyway. What I said was that I made efforts, but I didn't just oppose the timing of the efforts that I made.
Kwekwajima Menu there, speaking before that committee on Friday. Let's now hear him as he gave details of the contracts that we entered into with Sheikh Dalmouk Al Maktoum of Dubai.
You are going to spend $10 per dose, $10 per dose on a vaccine. And we approve saying for you And then it turns out that you have signed another contract without coming back to Parliament, which is more than $10 per dose. You've misled Parliament.
Honorable Chair, I still wouldn't want to agree to this perception or conception.
Mr. Minister, we are not talking about perception here. I am putting it to you. I have submitted to you a document that you gave us. And based on that, we reported to the plenary. We debated and was approved by the House. And you have done contrary to what you submitted to us. And I'm putting it to you that you misled us.
Honorable Chair, what is contained in that document that was debated upon were estimates on averages that have been put into a budget. And when I went to sign that contract, I have explained that I was preparing to come to seek parliamentary approval, and that is when this will have come out to the chamber. But I hesitated because I realized that the contract wasn't going to be executed. That is it.
Mr. Minister, do you agree with me that you do an estimate of something that you don't really know the cost, or you have not ventured into before, or that you are not too sure? But in this case, you signed the contract on the 9th of March before appearing at the committee. So you had in mind what you have done before. It's not as though you didn't know, and so you were going to forecast or you're going to estimate. You have signed, per the document you have submitted to us, you have signed 2 different contracts before bringing us the estimate. Why didn't you put into consideration what you had done before on arriving at your estimate?
Honorable Chair, these estimates were actually prepared before the contracts were signed. At the time of the committee hearing, I've said earlier that we never had any issue that prompted us to brief on what contracts we have signed or not.
You had this report which you presented to Parliament. And the report had to do with government-to-government transaction, which had pegged it as 7. No, from what you said, from what you have, the report is here. The estimate is here. It's on a 7, the average 7, and the cost, operational cost.
When did you say that it's government to government? When did you say that?
No, he explained.
But you are saying that.
No. Mr. Minister, the technical budget hearing report you brought to Parliament, those projections, were they based on government-to-government procurement?
Honorable Chair, that is correct.
Right.
Because at the time, we never thought that we were going to even venture to procure from any private vendor or even from Sputnik. And I may want to seek leave later after here to check on when that committee meeting was done and when the agreement was actually signed. Because I'm getting the more confused.
No, take it easy. You see, the whole contention of my colleague is basically that in spite of this, you could have taken advantage of that meeting or that engagement to also brief your committee on this new step, the subject matter of this inquiry. This is all his contention. He just wants your view on it, that perhaps acting in good faith in respect of that would have put matters to rest. This is what
Honorable
he's
Chair,
saying.
Honorable Chair,
Yes.
I think I just mentioned that I cannot, as I sit here, easily validate when that committee meeting was held, either before the contract was signed or after the contract had been signed. His questioning was talking about after the contract had been signed, and I want to seek leave to check before I can continue to even admit what he's talking.
Let's move away from COVID-19, and President Akufo-Addo says he's a defender of free speech, and that is evident in how Ghanaians are able to express their opinions publicly without any governmental suppression. Speaking during the special Eid al-Adha prayers at the National Mosque here in Accra, he urged Ghanaians not to allow persons he describes as misguided to destroy the peace of the country. We'll be hearing from him shortly, but first, here is Chief Policy Analyst at the Ghana Institute of Public Policy Options, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, calling on President Akufo-Addo to publicly condemn the life-threatening comments by Asin Central MP Kennedy Japong on Love FM's Erastus Asaridonko. He spoke on Newsfile.
The MP used the president's name. If I were the president, I think it was a very opportune moment for the president to say, you are not the president, I am, and I do not speak like that, and I do not condone such actions, and we must. Media. As whether he would say anything, that's one thing, but I expect him, as I know him, and as I've campaigned with him, and as we have sat down and believed in the of the media. Don't forget, this president was my when we were fighting for pluralism in Ghana's media, and we as far as the Supreme Court because we believe in an independent media. So I expect President Akufo as president to live beliefs that took us to court and supported the free media. The attacks on specific instances of people being allowed to express their views. But the issue, the fact them.
Now, that was Chief Policy Analyst at the Ghana Institute of Public Policy Options, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe. We can now hear from President Akufo-Addo. Now, he says his government is a promoter of free speech.
Let me state that I am a firm supporter of free speech. The government I lead is also a firm supporter of free speech, amply evidenced by the atmosphere of free speech prevailing in the country. However, we must all bear in mind that words can be as incendiary as guns. The Bible tells us that death and life are in the power of the tongue. All it took was the muttering of words by some irresponsible journalists and amplified by the power of radio to ignite the tragic genocide in Rwanda. It is important for all of us to recognize that there's only one country we call home, and that is Ghana. We must protect our way of life in the words of the National Pledge, with all our strength and with all our hearts. We should not allow the actions and utterances of a few misguided persons to jeopardize and destroy the united Ghana we currently possess, which is the envy of many in the continent and in the world.
You're live on JoyNews Desk with me, Daniel Daze. Let's stay with the Eid celebrations, and in the Upper West region, Muslims joined their colleagues from the rest of the world to celebrate this year's Eid al-Adha festival. Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Saleh used the occasion to urge Muslim leaders in the region to sensitize the youth against the practice of homosexuality and lesbianism, which some youths have reported to be engaging in the region. JoyNews' Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice, is typically marked by communal prayers, large social gatherings, and for many, slaughtering of livestock and giving meat to the needy. However, the situation is different today. Previously, over 25,000 Muslims would have been here to observe the 2 rakat open prayer in a venue that is about the size of 3 football fields, but the deadly coronavirus has trimmed down the numbers here. The prayer was led by the Jami Imam Alhaji Yahya Ahmed Nanjo. Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Sali expressed worry over recent reported cases of homosexuality and lesbianism among some youth in the region.
These practices are strange and not in tandem with our customs and Islam. As Muslims, the Holy Quran in Surah As-Shu'ara, verse 160 to 174, narrates the story of the people of Lut, destroyed by the wrath of Allah because men engage in lustful carnal acts between themselves. These acts are forbidden in Islam and also have serious negative health effects. According to the Ghana AIDS Commission, sexual transmission diseases among same-sex couples are higher than straight couples. As Muslims, it is time we intensify the sensitization of the youth about the negative effects of these practices and help those involved in the act to reform.
At the Jejere Central Mosque, followers of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission faith converged there for a 2 rakat prayer. The event was marked under strict COVID-19 restrictions. All of them wore nose masks, no room to hug their loved ones. The closest one could have is the face bomb. Upper West Zonal Missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission, Maulvi Muzaffar Masroor Chowdhury Ahmed, led the prayer.
These animals which we are sacrificing, it is just a symbol of the sacrifice of Abraham and his only son, that time Ishmael, that how he left him in a desert, and that desert was not reliable for a human body to stay there, but because it was the commandment of Almighty Allah, he decided to send the child and his wife to that desert to stay there for the sake of Almighty God.
The situation was not different at the Nasrajat Ahmadiyya College of Education. Morabi Bashiruddin Idris led the prayer and delivered a sermon who centered on the need for Muslims to sacrifice themselves for the cause of Allah. Apart from the sacrificing of animals for a festive occasion, members of the various families in Wa also used the occasion to reunite and make resolutions for the coming year. Abdul Latif Malamisa hails from Walima Ivory and has been in the United States for 30 years. He came home to join his kinsmen at the house of Malam Suman Dabla.
I am very, very pleased and happy about what I've seen. 3 years ago, I came home for Eid, and that have been impressive, and that is why I came again, and I've made it a ritual to be here every year to celebrate the Eid.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
And a belated Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. This is JoyNews Desk with me, Daniel Daze. Stay with us. 11 JoyNews Desk. Thanks for staying with us. Now, teenage pregnancy remains a big challenge in Ghana, and data from the annual Ghana Health Service statistics on this is very alarming. This time, it's not only girls that are between 13 and 19, but girls between 10 and 13 years as well. The data shows that in 2020, nearly 301 girls were impregnated every day in Ghana, while 13 teenage pregnancies are recorded every hour. In the central region, 10,301 girls got pregnant. Richard Kojonyako visited the Avra Sebu Kwamankese district and interacts with the teenage mothers and explored what led to their situation.
I feel sad when I see my younger sisters being a teenage mother. I know what it is and what they are passing through.
Ernestina Kosiakwa was a victim of defilement and as a result got pregnant during her teenage years. Years after the incident, Ernestina has been able to put herself together to rally people that were in the same situation around she was years ago.
Now, Team Preg Foundation have 400 teenage mothers, which 34 are in secondary schools in the central region, 22 are in basic schools, and 344 are in skills training.
She's mobilized 400 teenage mothers whose vulnerabilities are putting them back in situations that would make them pregnant again and shatter their dreams. I wasn't doing well at school, and so I dropped out and decided to learn some apprenticeship, but hunger was killing me. Charlotte is a teenage mother in the Abra-Sebu-Kwamankase district. She tells a chilling tale of what put her in the situation she finds herself. And then I got a guy who told me he would help me. I gave myself to him and he got me pregnant. But I decided to terminate the pregnancy. And thus went to buy a 70 Ghana cedi drug to terminate it. I tried and tried, but I couldn't terminate the pregnancy. So I had no option than to give birth, and Team Preg Foundation came to my aid. The struggle for survival. Her colleague, teenage mother, Jennifer, shares her ordeal and why she desperately needs some skills to become independent.
Obi 12 years up to 20 years. Yenyinsen yem bebre ne yenyinsen na yenya aboafo. Ebi wo no ma yema me nyipo yema me efim. Onye da bia ye mo fama bone nti na ye konyinsen yon. Onam ma ye bezinti.
We are many here, and so we need your support. We are many. Some are 12 years up to 20 years. We all got pregnant, but we had no support. It isn't that we are bad girls. That is why we got pregnant. But what we will eat on a daily basis makes us give ourselves to men. Now we need your support as we have begun learning skills. Some have no parents, and their families don't even mind them. And so survival becomes our only option. And then men take advantage of us and get us pregnant. We need your help. Kwamankase Omaihen, Okakabin Aidan Ando, the 10th, is calling for support for Team Preg Foundation as the foundation is gradually changing the narrative in the area.
It's what I can say is something that is uncontrollable. We of the Traditional Council have decided to give a land to any NGO who would like to help the traditional area, to help us in a way of driving out such a thing. Team Preg is doing well. It's the only NGO we have in our district here. So we are also saying that if they need any help from any quarters, I believe they should also help them.
Ernestina Kusiakwa is reaching out to individuals and benevolent organizations to lend her some support as she changes the song of these young ones. For now, she farms to feed the girls and provide skills and other support for the girls. From the Abra-Sebu-Kwamankase district, my name is Richard Kwejenyako for Joy News.
Live on Joy News desk with me, Daniel Dazi. Dialects next with business.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Ghana's economy is expected to become the fastest growing in sub-Saharan Africa this year. That's the view of Fitch Solutions, research arm of ratings agency Fitch. It is projecting a 4.8% expansion in the economy, consistent with that of the International Monetary Fund, Moody's, and Standard Bank, but in sharp contrast with the World Bank, which is forecasting a modest 1.4% gross domestic product growth rate. William Atwell is a senior risk analyst at Fitch Solutions in charge of sub-Saharan Africa. He has been speaking to Joy Business.
The outlook for Ghana is considerably more upbeat. and we forecast fairly robust real GDP growth of 4.8%, which is among the highest rates for any major SSA economy. And this reflects a fairly strong consumer recovery, a second tranche of government stimulus spending, and fairly healthy export performance. Sporadic protests are likely in the coming months, notably over governance concerns, but we think these will be fairly small scale and localized, and they're unlikely to have a detrimental impact on the growth outlook. As is the case in many other SSA markets, Ghana experienced an initial rebound in growth, with real GDP rising by a steady, if not spectacular, 3.1% in Q1. But the economy has subsequently faced some headwinds.
Meanwhile, Data Bank Research is maintaining its end-of-year forecast of overall real GDP growth rate within 3.9% and 4.9%. According to its latest analysis of the economy, the increased utilization of spare production capacity will sustain the recovery in the manufacturing and trade subsectors. Charles Nixon-Yeboah has more.
Data Bank Research said the high-frequency data shows ongoing recovery in economic activity, but the pace of recovery in aggregate or collective demand is sluggish as the post-lockdown wage growth remains restrained. Furthermore, the rising cost of production occasioned by the tax and transport fare hikes and higher fuel costs are downside risks to the expansion in manufacturing and trade. But the food harvest season in the third quarter and the main cocoa season in the fourth quarter should propel agricultural growth in the second half of the year, albeit with some risk from the unfavorable rainfall pattern across the southern sector. The economy expanded by 3.1% in the first quarter of this year, spurred by construction, manufacturing, and ICT. Data Bank Research pointed out that with the trade subsector also posting a modest growth of 2.7%, Ghana's growth pulse is gradually strengthening. Meanwhile, government will begin a gradual rollout of the 100 billion Ghana cedis Ghana Cares program from today over the medium term.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will not present a supplementary budget to Parliament during his presentation of the mid-year budget review. Now, this is the latest that Joy Business has picked up from persons with knowledge of the presentation. George Rafe has the latest.
Joy Business understands that the decision was firmed up earlier this week. This is coming after some engagement with Cabinet on the mid-year review of the 2021 budget just last week. We are learning that the initial plan to carry out the presentation was based on some inflows that Ghana could be getting from the IMF. They should have brought in some $1 billion. However, after a careful review, there were some uncertainties about the exact time that the funds should be coming in. Therefore, it wasn't prudent to plan with it or factor it into government's expenditure for the next half of this year. Again, government sources say the finance minister was also very particular about the budget deficit for this year and how everything must be done to ensure that they don't exceed it. The finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, recently told Joy Business that he is optimistic about the deficit being reduced significantly. This is due to how revenue has performed up to the middle of this year. We are learning that government is however planning to work with the current expenditure limits by ensuring that some critical projects do not suffer for this year. This is despite the fact that the minister will not be seeking additional funds to spend for the next 5 months of this year, even though it had become a practice that during the mid-year review, the finance minister seeks approval from Parliament to lay a supplementary budget. If indeed nothing changes to July 29, that is the presentation date, then the government would end this year with a total expenditure of 129 billion Ghana cedis for the financial year.
And that's your business update for now. The news continues after this break.
Let's talk sports, and Muftar Nabila Abdullahi has joined us in studio with the latest. I heard the match fixing matter has come up again.
I prefer to say alleged match fixing because the investigation processes have begun.
Let's be politically correct.
Yes.
Okay. You go ahead.
The investigation processes have begun. The GFA began this on Monday. we've been made to understand that they are extending their network beyond the single match involving Interlice and Ashanti Gold.
What happened in that match, actually? Let's start there.
Okay, so actually, in the game involving Interlice and Ash Gold, Interlice players were seen scoring own goals deliberately. So 2 of such goals were scored by a defender called Hashim Musa. And he claimed that he got information in their team hotel that there was a perfect score of 5-1. So he wanted to score the 2 goals to spoil the bet. That's what he claimed. So we've had an opportunity of speaking to the 2 clubs, where both claim that they actually did nothing wrong, and they've actually initiated internal investigations to ensure that whoever is found culpable is handed to the Ghana Football Association to be dealt with the football laws. Interlice have said that they know absolutely nothing about it.
Okay.
Ashgold also claimed they scored perfect goals in the game.
Okay.
But some of the goals, quote unquote, many claim that are not competitive enough. Well, the GFA says that this is an opportunity for them to investigate and sanctify the product Ghana football. Because over the years, we've been made to understand that the product Ghana football is murky. Many claim that this is a product that many people do not trust because of its integrity. So for issues of this nature to crop up at the end of the football season, it's an opportunity for them to investigate. So at this point, they're investigating as many as 8 matches.
Okay.
Not just the one involving Interlice and Ashanti Gold. In order not to maybe put out information out there that many people will know that they are investigating some specific matches, the Arrowhead match is the one involving Interlice and Ashanti Gold.
But there are other games.
They're investigating 8 matches, per what we know.
What do you expect?
I'm struggling to provide an answer, because if you take a look at the system, it's very difficult to actually appreciate the decisions of any adjudicated body in the Ghana Football Association. Because over the years, there've always been concerns about match fixing in the game, but the FA have never actually taken bold steps into punishing some clubs. I remember in 2016, One Africa United and Techiman City. One Africa United actually stepped up saying that their game against Techiman City was fixed. But at the end, nothing happened. So at this point, it's quite difficult to provide a specific answer on what the FA would do. But we hope that they will be able to punish some individuals who are caught in this work. At this point, we've also been made to understand that even the betting syndicates are involved, and these betting companies are in South Africa, Kenya, and Uganda. So it's very difficult for us to actually tell how far this investigation will go.
Mufta Nabil Abdullah, thank you very much
for
bringing us these headlines in sports. And this is where we wrap up this bulletin of Joy News Desk. My name is Daniel Daze. Many thanks for joining us. When we get the live feed from Parliament, the Sputnik V vaccination probe will bring that to you. Otherwise, see you at midday when we bring you the news at the top of the hour.